Let me give you 3 passages that clearly put Israel in the last days. This is going to be important, and you'll see why here in a moment. So Amos 9, verse 14 says, I will bring back the captives of my people Israel. They shall build the waste cities and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and drink wine from them. They shall also make gardens and eat fruit from them. I will plant them in their land, and no longer shall they be pulled up from the land I have given them, says the Lord your God. So God says, I'm going to plant them in the land, and they're not going to be taken out of the land again. So sometimes when you talk about the regathering passages, people will say, well, it's talking about them being regathered from the Babylonian captivity. But the Bible clearly states that God's going to bring them from captivity a second time. So the Bible tells us that God's going to restore them again in the last days, and they will not be removed from the land. Also, when God brings the final judgment on all nations, this is the Battle of Armageddon. It's the Valley of Jezreel, and there's a place called Megiddo, which is a mountain that's right off the Jezreel Valley, and Armageddon means mountain of Megiddo, Mount Megiddo. And so in the Valley of Armageddon is the Jezreel Valley. Many battles have been fought in that particular huge area that's right on the crossroads between Africa and Europe. And you come to this huge Jezreel Valley where battles are fought in. And here's what God says. It's called the Valley of Jehoshaphat here, but it's Joel 3, 1 and 2. It says, for behold, in those days and at that time, when I bring back the captives of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather the nations and bring them down to the Valley of Jehoshaphat. And I will enter into judgment with them there on account of my people, my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, and they have divided my land. So God says, at the time I bring back the captives of Judah and Jerusalem, I'll bring them back in. I'm also going to bring justice and judgment in the Valley of Jehoshaphat. So when the Valley of Armageddon comes, or the Battle of Armageddon comes, then Israel will be back in the land. So this is where I'm saying that you've got Israel and prophecy intertwined all the way through the Old and New Testament. In Ezekiel, we see God working with Israel in the latter days. It actually talks about the latter days. This is Ezekiel 38:16. You will come up against my people Israel like a cloud. He's talking to Gog, the Gog and Magog war. And Gog seems to be a title rather than a name. So when someone asks, I remember people thinking that Gorbachev was Gog because of the thing that he had up on his forehead. Remember? So when they would ask, is Gorbachev Gog? Well, it's a title. Okay? So Gog and Magog. So he's talking to Gog in this passage, who comes against Israel in the last days. It's a war that hasn't happened yet, where Russia and Persia and Libya and Turkey, all of these are ones we've identified, make a coalition, and they come against the nation of Israel. Well, for the first time in history, Russia and Iran, who was Persia in the Bible, are in a pact together. They're on the same side for the first time in history that it could actually happen now. These other countries, Libya and Turkey that are mentioned, it would be easy to see them coming against the nation of Israel as well. So here's what he says to Gog. You will come up against my people like a cloud to cover the land. And it will be in the latter days that I will bring you against my land, so that the nations may know me when I am hallowed in you, O Gog, before their eyes. So it's in the latter days that this happens, and they go up against the nation of Israel. So God clearly tells us that Israel is the centerpiece in the last days. Joel Rosenberg wrote a book called The Epicenter, where Jerusalem is the epicenter of what happens in the last days according to the scriptures.